A warm welcome to everyone joining us from all over the world. We're here at Autodrom Most for the Twingo Cup, which starts Sunday's program. We're ready for race number 1, which is definitely supposed to entertain us from start to finish. The Twingo Cup comes here at the beautiful Autodrom Most in the Czech Republic, one of the most important racetracks here in Central Eastern Europe for what is round 2 of the 2025 season. We started off a month ago in Slovakia, in Orechova Potona, the beautiful Slovakia ring, and then we'll be coming back to that racetrack in August for round number 3 before then heading to Brno, back in the Czech Republic for round number 4, the final one of this incredibly entertaining season. We've watched 2 amazing races back in Slovakia a month and a half ago, and we're definitely ready to see more of the same today with this man right here, Stefan Trenenský, ready to start from pole position. Car number 427 is ready to start from P1. That is on the left-hand side of the track, the right-hand side when we will be switching to the actual camera that points towards the start-finish straight. This is the lovely racetrack that we're racing around this weekend. You can see a very elongated form for Autodrom Most. That is a 4.2 kilometer circuit with 21 corners, 12 to the right and 9 to the left. This is the starting grid. Nick Stefancic ready to start from second position. He is, of course, the man to beat this year. He has taken both wins in Slovakia and he's a 2-time champion after taking a couple years of break in between his races. But Trenenský, who is currently 5th in the standings, is definitely ready to bring the fight to Stefancic, who will start in second position today. He was denied pole by a little over a tenth from Trenenský before then switching to the second row of the grid, where we see Jörg Sodnik and Jure Hrzeniak in 3rd and 4th positions. But the starting grid is basically full now, with 20 cars ready to take on this iconic racetrack in Central Eastern Europe. Broke ground a little over 40 years ago in 1983 after 5 years of hard work by the Czech government. Of course, the Most region being no stranger to racing, given the many sporting events taking place around these parts of the Czech Republic right after the Second World War and up until the 1980s, when they finally opted to build a racetrack, coming up with the beautiful Autodrom Most, which then was renewed back in 2005 when we added the infamous first chicane, very similar to a track that a lot of people know and love, the Autodromo Nazionale Monza back in Italy, with the first chicane mirroring the opening sequence of corners of that circuit and providing, of course, yet another overtaking opportunity. We will be seeing definitely some moves up the inside or even around the outside into turn 1, with the main straight not being that long. But of course, with these very little cars, it feels like a lifetime between turn number 21, the final corner of the racetrack, and then the opening sequence of turns. We're getting ready to see the board that will tell the drivers that only 30 seconds separate them from the start of the formation lap, and then we will be going with a 25-minute race here for the Twingo Cup. As we were saying, Stefan Trenenský will start from pole position. Nick Stefancic, the championship leader and 2-time champion, in second position. His main rival this year has been Marko Blaževský so far, but he starts only from 6th place and at the end of the 3rd row of the starting grid. The formation lap is officially underway, and we're therefore able to talk a bit about this incredible track. We already talked about its number of corners, 21, 12 to the right and 9 to the left. It's also a venue that has been used and is currently being profoundly used for testing and driver training as well, for either race cars, race drivers, or even other positions, especially for policemen and other of the sort. It became the first permanent motor racing facility in the country as well, back in 1983 when we started racing around here. And here you can see the chicane that was added back in 2005, turns 1 and 2, with those orange bollards as well, which have been added for some categories this weekend, just to see and limit where the track limits actually are. not letting drivers cut too much into the curbs. Whereas here we are already in sector number 2 almost. This is the first sequence of corners that brings drivers to turn 6 and 7, which is this sharp left-hander that you see now. Drivers turning left into turn 6 before diving into what is the slowest part of the circuit, together with the first couple of corners, and that is a hairpin at turn number 10, which we are about to see also with the images on car number 73, that is Bojan Šeme, together with Nikola Jancic just in front of him. They are the two drivers who make up the 5th row of the grid. Jancic starting in 9th and Šeme in 10th. And you can also see different factories in the background. Of course, a very industrial area here in Most. Whereas here we are already into the middle part of the track, handling then turn number 13, the sharp right-hander of 90 degrees, which then brings drivers towards the Orlen Bridge. Here it is. And under it, turn number 15, a very, very long right-hander. Of course, the second part of the circuit, known for these flowy corners that have to be taken at high speeds in order for the lap time to be there. And that is exactly what Stefan Tranenski did in qualifying, just edging out Nika Stefancic by a little over a tenth. The two of them being almost 6/10 clearer than the rest of the field, which was definitely a surprise to see in such a closely contested championship usually, especially given that Marko Blaževski was only down in 6th position. Unfortunately, couldn't find some clean air in qualifying, especially in his last attempt, as Blaževski is then forced to start from 6th position. The drivers are now getting ready to find their way back to the starting grid, as they will be then getting ready for a standing start. Here we are with the final 2 corners. This is turn number 20, and right after the pit entry we have turn number 21, as Stefan Tranenski is then going to line up in 1st position just ahead of Nik Stefancic. Then it's Jörg Sodnik in 3rd place ahead of Jure Hrženjak. 5th position for Nik Poljanek, just ahead of Marko Blaževski, who we talked about plenty in the last couple of minutes. 7th place for Tai Kovacic, just ahead of Lukas Hulik. And then it's Nikola Jancic and Bojan Šeme rounding out the top 10. We have 20 drivers ready to take on this race. Watch out for Linda Frey and Karolina Prozhova back in 16th and 18th position, wanting to make a comeback and finish inside the points today. Same goes, of course, for Pavel Savicka down in 15th. He's, of course, much quicker than that usually, and we saw that at the Slovakia ring. But here is Stefan Tranenski lining up a bit behind the grid slot for 1st place, but we're about to see the lights turn red, and once they turn off, we will be racing here in Most for race number 1 of the Twingo Cup. It's a great start for Stefan Tranenski, who immediately cuts off Nik Stefancic, trying to defend that 1st position, as of course a slipstream is everything in these cars, and so Stefancic tries to maybe take advantage of that, also pushing a bit Stefan Tranenski towards turn number 1. We come to the breaking point as Jörg Sodnik also looks to the outside. There's contact behind them with a couple of cars running into the back of each other, but thankfully no spins into turn number 1, and we seem to be underway quite cleanly despite that little contact into turn number 1, with Stefan Tranenski still in the lead ahead of Nik Stefancic, who was under attack from Jörg Sodnik throughout the first couple of corners. We'll see if he has been able to defend successfully his position as we now go through turns number 5 and 6. We now see all the drivers moving towards the 2nd sector, with, of course, the timer of 25 minutes ticking away already. We saw Marko Blaževski coming together with what I think was Nik Poljanek's into turn number 1, as Blażewski is still in 6th position. The top 3, however, already breaking away from the rest of the field, with Stefan Trenenski still in the lead, ahead of Stefancic Sorgnik. Then it's Jure Hrzyniak in 4th position, just ahead of Polinets and Blażewski, who have kept their positions from the start. But here is the North Macedonian Stefan Trenenski still in the lead, just ahead of Nik Stefancic, who was under attack from fellow Slovenian Jurg Sodnik into turn number 1. Sodnik tried it around the outside, but it was a phenomenal defense from Stefancic. I mean, you wouldn't expect anything less from a 2-time champion, would you? Despite a 2-year break, he is back in Twingo Cup, ready to take a 3rd crown home. Though, of course, the rest of the field will try and stop him from doing that. Here is Nikola Jancic trying the overtake on Taj Kovacic. That is the fight for 7th position between the Serb and the Slovenian. Meanwhile, though, up front, it's Nik Stefancic trying to push the back of Stefan Trenenski. The bomb draft technique, as always, being very useful here in Twingo Cup, since straight line speed is, of course, a bit of a weak point for these very small cars. Let's see if Trenenski can then tackle the first corner correctly, despite carrying a bit more speed than usual. But he did flawlessly into turn 1. Meanwhile, there's a fight behind for what looks to be 9th position, with Šeme now under attack and overtaken by Lukasz Hulik with the F4 CZ Academy car. And that is the same team that Stefan Trenenski is currently racing in. Of course, the Central European Zone Academy giving the chance to drivers to develop their skills and make a great impression and a great impact on the series, because out of every single one of the 4 rounds, the driver who will be better placed between the CZ Academy drivers will then win a test session in a Formula 4 car. And Trenenski already got that privilege from the Slovakia ring, as he finished 4th and 5th in the opening 2 races of the season. Now Trenenski and Stefancic have broken away from Jurg Sodnik, who is now under attack from Nik Polinets, who seems to have caught back up to the 3rd place held by Sodnik at the moment. Meanwhile, behind, there's still many fights going on. That's the 777 car of Taj Kovacic, the black one, currently in 7th. Right behind Marko Blaževski in the bright green Twingo. Meanwhile, Stefancic and Trenenski still in the top 2. Sodnik and Poljanek in 3rd and 4th as well. As here you can see the fight with Jancic, who has overtaken Kovacic for 7th. Let's see if Kovacic will have something to say about that, especially towards turn number 1, as the 2 Lema Racing teammates are bound to fight once more towards turn number 1. Let's see whether Kovacic will try the attack or if he will think better of it. It looks like he's not going to try and make a move up the inside, also because, on the other hand, Nikola Jancic was so late on the brakes, which meant that he was able to defend the position from his rival. That was a lovely job from Nik Polinets as well. As you can see now, he is pretty much glued to the back of Jurg Sodnik, and that is definitely what he wanted to see coming into what is now the 3rd lap of the race. Drivers trying to make the best out of the situation, and of course getting as much time as possible in these early stages of the race. Stefan Trenenski, Nik Stefancic, Jurg Sodnik and Nik Polinets all having a huge gap over 5th place Jure Hrzyniak, who was a little over 3 seconds behind, which is likely to be considered an eternity in these little cars, which are of course usually very close to one another. As now we can see a little fight almost ready to break out between Sotnik and Poninets. The latter being quite close to the back of the Slovenian, though car number 55 is able to defend, especially thanks to the slipstream that is also powerful around here. Meanwhile, we have car number 62 in the gravel, and that's the driver who was holding 16th position. Such an unfortunate end for Richard Sopuch, who is out of the running, it seems. But here we go towards turn number 1. The fight for the lead is about to break out as Trnenski and Stefancic fighting hard. But it's Stefancic right now in the lead, and Trnenski has dropped to 4th position now, making it almost 3rd, as he wanted to at least get the place back on Poninets, but just lacking the slipstream and lacking some pace now, Stefan Trnenski, and he is down just like that, from 1st to 4th. And that is such a shame. Meanwhile, here is the beached Twingo number 62 of Richard Sopuch, part of the CZ Academy, making his debut this year here in Most. Be interesting to see whether or not it was a contact that caused him to crash out of the race, or whether he just spun on his own. But we see the driver moving inside the cockpit, so he is definitely okay, and that is the best thing. But meanwhile, the safety car has been called out on track, rather unsurprisingly, given that the car is beached in the gravel but very close to the racing line. And therefore, that overtake from Nick Stefancic proves to be so crucial, especially since Stefan Trnenski has dropped from 1st place all the way down to 4th. And that is, of course, not what he wanted, especially given how tricky it was for Trnenski to then get back on the right pace. But that is the beauty and the shame sometimes of Twingo Cup. Everything can change in just a split second, and therefore for at least Trnenski that is not a good thing. And here is the safety car ready to wait for the leader. And here is a replay of the incident that took car number 62 out. Sopuch thankfully is out of the car and running, so he is definitely okay with the contact putting him out of contention for the race. And that is very, very unfortunate, at least for his debut. Meanwhile, here we are with the rest of the group, who is now into another lap, but this time under safety car conditions. And that is also car number 205, who seems to be beached in the gravel, and it is. And that's unfortunately Karolina Pruzhova, the other driver of the Formula 4 CZ Academy. And it's such a shame for her, as she tries to signal the marshals to help her back out on track, but unfortunately that will mean race over as the rules stand. But unfortunately that is also Richard Sopuch, Czech driver, in his own race, fortunately lasting less than half distance. Of course, the safety car out on track to let the recovery of all cars happen. There's only 2 cars out, so this should be a rather quick turn of events. Both cars have been secured now to the lorries, so we are definitely going to see the safety car out for at least 1 more lap, if not 2, before starting procedures once more. We have 40 minutes left on the clock, and it's Nick Stefancic once again in front, making the move stick just before the arrival of the safety car on Stefan Trnenski, who dropped to 4th position in the meantime, overtaken by Jord Sodnik and Nick Polianets as well, as the 3 Slovenian drivers are in 1st, 2nd and 3rd. Here's once again the replay of contact that put car number 62 out of contention. And that is unfortunate. Race over for Richard Sopu, together with Karolina Pruzhova as well. She is also out. We saw her with the car beached. Car number 62 is currently into turn 16. That is the second half, actually the latter part of the circuit. You can see now the whole group of the 18 Twingos left. Bearing the left, of course, has operations to recover the car, keep on going, but should be about to finish them soon. And the same goes for car number 205, as it is currently being secured with the infamous belts that are used to recover the cars. And then we will be ready to restart. This of course gives us the opportunity to look also behind the top 4, which have been our point of concentration, of course. But we also have Jure Hrozeniak in 5th, with Marko Blaževski in 6th, of course Blaževski being the main rival of Nik Stefancic throughout the first weekend. He sits in 2nd in the championship, but only started 6th today, and he was not able to move up any place in the first half of race number 1. Nikola Jancic and Tai Kovacic are 7th and 8th so far, with Lukas Hulik and Anton Jus rounding out the top 10, which makes it 2 CZ Academy drivers in the top 10. Stranetsky, of course, in 4th. He has by far the best of them so far in this first half of the season, and then it's Lukas Hulik in 9th place. Meanwhile, Karolina Pruzhova has been brought to the track once more. She should be able to get things underway, as she now moves to rejoin the track, though of course she's down a couple of laps compared to the rest of the field, and so will not be fighting for points today. She's basically out of contention, but at least the car has gotten going again. Also because, let's not forget that today we have 2 races for Twingo Cup. This is the first one opening the program, and then we'll have one right at the end at 4:15 local time. Race number 2 happening once again in the late afternoon, the penultimate race of the program as well. A very dense program, which sees 9 races for 6 different championships, which is of course why it has become so interesting to follow this weekend, especially here in Most, being one of the highlights of the entire Central European Zone season for many championships. We have DCR Eastern Europe here, together with the GT Cup series in both the sprint and the endurance formats. Of course, we have the Twingo Cup's big sister, the Clio Cup Bohemia, as well as the Suzuki Swift Cup Europe, and last but definitely not least, the Formula 4 Central European Zone Championship, certified by the FIA, just like any other regularly important Formula 4 series around the world. Meanwhile, the safety car will be in at the end of this lap, as of course the graphics also remind us, but we saw it from the lights being turned off on the top of the car's roof, and therefore we are ready to get things back underway with Nik Stefancic, Jörg Sodnik and Nick Polianets in the top 3. Watch out for Stefan Tranecki. He will definitely be eager to make it back to the podium at least. Remember, he was leading in the first few laps before being dropped to 4th right before the safety car got called out, so he has a bit of a bone to pick with the top 3. We'll see if he will be the one managing to do so, but naturally we will be trying to enjoy these last 9 minutes with Nik Stefancic being ready to get things underway once more as the green flag flies. We are ready to watch the two-time champion take the entire group of cars towards the start-finish line. He's going to wait for the absolute last second in order to go and not being attacked into turn one. But that was a great launch behind him from Sodnik, with Polianets as well in third. But Sodnik is very close to Stefancic. Can he move up the inside towards turn number one? He'd rather push Stefancic on, try and maybe get some space on third position, as Stefancic is in the lead into turn number one. There's also Blazewski trying to defend his sixth position from the attack of Nikola Jancic. All 18 cars make it through turns 1 and 2 without issues. And here we go towards the end of the first sector. Nik Stefancic and Sodnik in first and second place. Tranenski is still in fourth with the light blue car of Polianets in third. He is still in a podium position. Meanwhile, here is Kovacic right behind Blazewski. Maybe he's going to try and move up the inside into turn 10, and that is a brilliant overtake from Kovacic, who had already overtaken Nikola Jancic before, and now Jancic is up the inside of Blazewski, who loses 2 places in just a couple of corners time. Meanwhile, Kovacic does the exact opposite, and he's climbed 2 positions in the space of 1 sector. Now Blazewski tries the counter-attack around the outside, but that's not going to work, and he's not going to be under attack from Hulik as well. Definitely not the restart to the race that Blazewski wanted. That is the drone cam letting us watch from the side. Meanwhile, some pieces of car and of carbon fiber flying off from one of the bodies of the different cars. And that is quite unfortunate, at least for whoever lost that little piece. But so far, so good for the top 3, as Tranenski seems to struggle a bit with pace now, as he has dropped from the top 3. Meanwhile, the black car of Kovacic still making a lot of inroads, gaining a lot of time and being able to fly off into the distance, trying to at least catch back up to the top 5, as here you can see the trio of Stefancic, Sodnik and Polianets towards turn number 1. It's Sodnik around the outside of Stefancic, though the two-time champion is able to defend, as now Tranenski goes slightly wide into turn 1. And there's also Kovacic completely missing his braking point and having to cut the first chicane, of course, taking avoiding action to not hit the barriers and then get behind at least 5th position, as that was his original place coming into the corner. But he has lost even more places and is now down, I think, to 9th, as he was overtaken by Jancic, by Blazewski and Hulik as well. That is such a shame for him. He was trying his best to gain some time, but unfortunately that backfired massively, especially at the start of this lap. We now have less than 5 minutes to go. Usually lap times are around the 2-minute and 15 mark, so we should have 2 more laps before the end of the race, not including the one, of course, that we are currently in, which means that Stefancic still has to defend, as now around the outside goes Nik Polianets on Nik Stefancic, but unfortunately not able to make the move stick, but Polianets has in fact moved into second position, and Tranenski is also very close to the back of Jörg Sodnik. Stefancic still in the lead, but it's not over yet. He has to work very hard for this, just like he did back at the Slovakia ring. Was definitely a look for Polianets up the inside of Stefancic there at the penultimate turn. He opted, however, to not do that, as that would have been quite dangerous and probably not the best decision race pace wise. So here he is, bomb drafting Nick Stefancic once again towards turn number 1. Will he try and move up the around the outside maybe, because Stefancic is aggressively defending the inside line. Meanwhile, Trenenski is up the inside of Sodnik, and he makes the move stick as the North Macedonian moves back into the podium places and into third. Sodnik out of nowhere from attacking the lead. He's down to 4th place, but that is the beauty of the Twingo Cup. Meanwhile, Hrozeniak in 5th is getting something, as the BA Motorsport driver is closing in on 2 of his teammates, Nick Polinets and Jörg Sodnik, but not enough so far to pose a threat to the top 4 as we're into the penultimate lap of the race. You can see just how aggressive Nick Polinets is being on the braking as well, but now it's Trenenski's time to come back at him, as the F4CZ Academy driver now tries a move maybe around the outside of turn number 13. That is not going to work. He's going to stop back behind Polinets in the hopes of maybe making the move stick in one of the next overtaking opportunities. Though you can see how quick Polinets is in the middle part of the track, gaining a lot of time on Stefancic, also thanks to the slipstream, especially in this part of the race. Stefancic looks to be a bit on the defensive side of things, as he now protects the inside line towards the penultimate corner. We're about to start the final lap of the race, as now car number 30 is mighty close to the back of the 2-time champion Nick Stefancic. Will we be seeing a move into turn number 1? And watch out for Stefan Trenenski as well. He's not going to waste any time into trying something towards the opening chicane if the top 2 are not careful enough. Here we go, final lap of the race. Nick Stefancic still in the lead, but Polinets is so close, and he now darts to the outside. Breaks super late into turn 1. Can he make the move stick? No, he can't. It's a lovely defensive work from Nick Stefancic, who was able to keep 1st place, but he now has a slightly worse exit than Polecek, as the 3 of them together with Trenenski move towards turns number 4, 5 and 6. We're fighting hard for that top 3, as Sodnik is behind them, waiting maybe for a mistake to happen from one of the top 2 drivers. So far though, that's not going to happen, as Polinets still in 1st place, at least behind in the fight for 2nd, behind Stefancic, who's holding down the lead. But I think now Polinets will have one more attempt, potentially into the final corner of the race. You can also see the fight for 5th place going off in the back with Hrozeniak, Hulik and Blazewski. What a race by Lukas Hulik as well, climbing all the way up to 6th and maybe potentially even 5th, as now Trenenski tries a move up the inside of Polinets, putting him under pressure, and that will release Nick Stefancic into the lead with a big advantage. And actually it's Jörg Sodnik as well, now up into 3rd, demoting Trenenski to 4th. And now we go towards the final 2 corners with Polinets maybe too far behind Nick Stefancic, and the fight for 2nd has overshadowed a potential fight for victory. Though Polinets is now quite close. Will he try a last gasp move over Nick Stefancic? He's not going to. It's going to be a drag race to the line, as Nick Stefancic moves to the inside. Nick Polinets goes to the outside and takes the win here in Most. What an incredible finish between the 4 of them, and thanks to the slipstream, Nick Polinets is a Twingo Cup race winner this season. What a finish, just 81 thousandths of a second dividing the top 2, as Nick Stefancic, after having led the entirety of the second half of the race, has to settle for second. Third place goes to Jörg Sodnik in a podium featuring only Slovenian drivers. And what a shame for our pole sitter, Stefan Traneski, who is down to 4th position, missing out on the podium, though his countryman Marko Blaževski somehow recovering from 8th to 5th on the final lap of the race, as the Lema Racing driver succeeds in his quest of finishing once again in the top 5. But what a finish in race number 1 here in Autodrom Most, with Nick Poljanec stealing the win from Nick Stefancic. He did superbly well to defend second position from the attacks of Jörg Sodnik in the middle part of the lap, and then getting the overspeed on Nick Poljanec throughout the last couple of corners. Maybe Poljanec having a lot more confidence in the final couple of turns. Nick Stefancic potentially thinking that he had already won the race, especially throughout the final 2 corners, but at the end it wasn't not like that whatsoever, and Nick Poljanec had a mighty finish to the race, getting his first win of the season after Nick Stefancic had taken a double victory back in Slovakia for round 1. But here are the results: just 81 thousandths of a second dividing the top 2, and a little over 3/10 covering the top 4, with Nick Poljanec, Nick Stefancic and Jörg Sodnik on the podium for race number 1 here in Autodrom Most, the second round of the 2025 Twingo Cup Series. It was a great effort as well from Matthias Kutsera to fight back to 9th place. And here are the highlights of race number 1 of the Twingo Cup here in Most. Those were the highlights of race number 1 for the Twingo Cup, and that is everything for this first race of the day. Let's not forget the Twingo Cup will once again go out on track at 4:15 p.m. local time for race number 2 here in Autodrom Most, and to finish the first half of the 2025 season. Thanks for being with us, and see you guys for the next race.
Egy, kettő.